December 2021. You're crying in the theater as Andrew Garfield saves MJ. 3 years later, you're fast-forwarding through the same scene. What changed? You did. And that's exactly what Sony was counting on. I'm about to ruin your favorite Spider-Man movie. Not because I'm a hater, but because someone needs to say what we're all thinking after that third viewing. No Way Home isn't just overrated, it's a masterclass in emotional manipulation disguised as storytelling. And the evidence is hiding in plain sight. But let's go back to that moment. You're sitting in the theater and the impossible just happened. 3 Spider-Men, every villain from the past 20 years, and your childhood is swinging across the screen. You're not just watching a movie, you're experiencing cinematic magic. No Way Home earned $1.9 billion worldwide, became the 7th highest grossing film of all time, and scored 93% from critics and 98% from audiences. That's not just success, that's cultural domination. People were buying tickets months in advance. Theaters were selling out like it was Endgame all over again. Even the most jaded Marvel critics were saying, this is it. This is what the MCU was building toward. And the thing is, it worked. We all bought in. Sony and Marvel had just pulled off the greatest magic trick in modern cinema. They made us believe nostalgia was the same thing as quality. They blurred the line between recognition and storytelling. They convinced us that seeing something we used to love was the same as creating something worth loving now. So let me ask you something. When was the last time you watched No Way Home? Not highlights on YouTube, not reaction videos, I'm talking about sitting down and watching the entire movie from start to finish. If you're being honest, it's probably been a while, and if you did try recently, you probably found yourself checking your phone more than you expected. That's the novelty trap, and No Way Home is the perfect example of how it works. See, the first time you watch this movie, your brain is in constant shock mode. Holy shit, is that Willem Dafoe? Wait, Dr. Octopus is back? Oh my god, they actually got Tobey and Andrew? Your dopamine receptors are firing like crazy because you're not just watching a story unfold, you're watching the impossible become possible. But here's the cruel reality of novelty. It has an expiration date. The second time you watch No Way Home, those moments still hit, but they're softer. By the third viewing, you're mentally preparing for them, and by the fourth, you're actively waiting for them to be over so you can get to the parts that actually matter. Think about the first 30 minutes of this movie. Peter's identity is revealed, his life falls apart, and he goes to Doctor Strange for help. Remove the anticipation of seeing those villains, take away the excitement of the multiverse opening up. What are you left with? A teenager who can't get into college asking a wizard to brainwash the entire planet.
So, how did the bad guys get here?
We screwed up a spell trying to get you into college.
Wait, what?
That's not character development, that's a plot device wearing a Spider-Man costume. But we didn't care about any of that in December 2021. We were too busy losing our minds over Doc Ock's tentacles. We were too distracted by the Green Goblin's cackle. We were too focused on theories about which Spider-Man would show up first to notice that the story getting us there made absolutely no sense. That's the novelty trap. It doesn't just mask bad storytelling, it makes us complicit in accepting it. Because when you're riding that high of recognition, the last thing you want to do is ask uncomfortable questions about the ride itself. And Marvel knew this. They counted on it. They built their entire Phase 4 strategy around it. Because what happened with No Way Home wasn't just bad storytelling, it was conditioning. They were training us to accept a lower standard as long as they gave us the right hit of nostalgia. Think about it like this. Remember the first time you saw Iron Man in 2008? That suit-up scene in the cave wasn't just cool, it was earned. Tony Stark had been tortured, had his worldview shattered, and was literally fighting for his life. The suit represented his transformation, his redemption. When he put it on, it meant something. Now, compare that to the moment Doc Ock shows up in No Way Home.
Hello, Peter.
Instant chills, right? But what has that moment earned? What story purpose does it serve beyond, hey, remember this guy you liked? Alfred Molina is fantastic, don't get me wrong, but his return isn't driven by character necessity, it's driven by audience demand. And here's the insidious part. It worked so well that we started craving it. We started expecting it. By the time Multiverse of Madness rolled around, we weren't just hoping for surprises, we were demanding them. When John Krasinski showed up as Reed Richards, the theater erupted. But why? Because it served the story, or because someone on Reddit had been fan casting him for years? This is how fan service becomes a drug. The first hit is incredible. You feel that rush of recognition, that validation that your investment in this universe matters. But like any drug, you build tolerance. What used to be a special moment becomes the baseline expectation. Look at what happened after No Way Home. Every single Marvel project that followed tried to recreate that lightning in a bottle. Secret cameos, multiverse teases, legacy character returns. But each one felt more desperate than the last. Because they weren't building toward anything, they were just chasing the high. The scariest part? We let them. We lined up for every disappointment, every hollow callback, every meaningless cameo, because we were still chasing that December 2021 feeling. And Marvel knew exactly what they were doing. They weren't just making movies anymore, they were managing our dependency. Keep us just satisfied enough to come back, but never quite full enough to stop craving more. The question is, are we okay with being patients instead of audiences? Now hold on, before you think I'm just here to trash your favorite movie, let me be clear, No Way Home isn't completely broken. There are moments, real moments, that transcend the nostalgia bait. Aunt May's death, full stop. That scene works because it's not about fan service, it's about consequence. For the first time in the MCU Spider-Man trilogy, Peter Parker faces real loss. Not disappointment, not setbacks, devastating, life-altering loss. Tom Holland's performance in that moment, that's genuine emotion, not manufactured sentiment. Then there's the rooftop scene. 3 Spider-Men talking about grief, loss, and failure.
I lost Gwen. She was my MJ.
That line hits because it's not a callback, it's character truth. These aren't cameos having a conversation, they're broken men sharing their wounds. And yes, Andrew catching MJ actually works, not because it's fan service, but because it's earned redemption. Andrew's Spider-Man failed to save the person he loved most. This moment doesn't just give him closure, it prevents Tom's Spider-Man from living with that same trauma. Here's the difference. These scenes would work even if you'd never seen the previous films. They're built on universal human experiences. Loss, regret, the need for connection. The nostalgia enhances them, it doesn't create them. But here's the problem. These genuine moments are surrounded by 2 hours of emotional manipulation. And because they work so well, they trick us into thinking the entire movie works. It's like finding a perfect diamond in a pile of fake jewelry. The diamond is real, but it doesn't validate the fakes around it. That's the most frustrating part about No Way Home. It proves the filmmakers knew how to make it work. They just chose not to. Here's the real tragedy. No Way Home's success taught Marvel exactly the wrong lesson. They looked at those billion-dollar numbers and thought, this is the formula. This is how we win. But what they actually proved was that audiences were so starved for genuine Spider-Man storytelling that they'd accept anything wrapped in the right packaging. We weren't celebrating the multiverse, we were celebrating the return of consequences, real relationships, and a Peter Parker who actually had to sacrifice something. Instead, Marvel heard more multiverse. Look what happened next. Doctor Strange 2 became a cameo parade with a horror movie skin. The Marvels tried to recreate that team-up magic. Deadpool 3 is literally banking on multiverse nostalgia. Even the upcoming Secret Wars, Marvel's biggest event, is built on the assumption that more universes equals more excitement. They turn the multiverse into a content delivery system. Want to generate buzz without developing new characters? Bring back an old one. Can't figure out how to make your story work? Just say it's from another universe. The multiverse used to be a storytelling tool, now it's a crutch, and No Way Home showed them it was a profitable crutch. They're not even trying to hide it anymore. Every Marvel announcement now comes with the same promise. You'll see characters you recognize in ways you've never seen before. Not, you'll see great stories. Not, you'll see compelling characters. Just, you'll see familiar faces. That's No Way Home's real legacy. It didn't save the MCU, it taught Marvel how to exploit our nostalgia instead of earning our investment, and we're all paying the price. So here we are, 3 years later, and the truth is exactly what you suspected when you started fast-forwarding through those scenes. No Way Home isn't a masterpiece. It's a magic trick that fooled all of us into thinking nostalgia was the same thing as quality. But here's what's worse than being fooled, staying fooled. Because every time we defend this movie's flaws, we're telling Marvel that this is enough. The MCU isn't broken because of bad movies. It's broken because we taught them that good enough was good enough. No Way Home was the moment we traded our standards for our childhoods. And Marvel learned that trade was profitable. But it doesn't have to stay that way. The next time Marvel asks you to cheer for a cameo, ask yourself, what story is this serving? What about compelling characters? Because we deserve better. We deserve Spider-Man movies that work without requiring 3 previous franchises to carry them. We deserve Marvel films that create moments instead of just recreating them. We deserve stories that trust us to care about new things, not just old things in new packaging. What do you think? Are you ready to admit that No Way Home played you? Or are you still defending it in the comments? And if this video made you rethink how you consume Marvel content, hit that subscribe button, because we're not done talking about how the MCU lost its way. Next week, we're breaking down why Phase 4 failed, and it's not for the reasons you think.